Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're checking out something different. This is a group DPS build for the Elder Scrolls Online here on the Stamina Warden. I've got an easy bow setup. It's going to be great for normal and veteran dungeons and even normal trials, and no trials gear is needed. So only using crafted dungeon or overland sets with a simple DPS rotation as well to hopefully make it as easy as possible to get started. As usual, we'll go over the stats, the gear set options, skills, champion points, and the rotation, and that's all coming up right now. All right, here we are back on the Stamina Warden. This time something a little bit different for the channel. Again, a basic DPS setup, no trials gear necessary, and a simplified rotation for this build. Let's go ahead and jump into it with the buff stats. Having our potion active here. Making sure we got those animal companion buffs going. And sitting at about 10k max magicka, 18k max health, almost 32 max stamina for our recovery, 600 magicka recovery, 300 health recovery, 1100 stamina recovery, 3300 weapon damage. That will go up quite a bit with our back bar glyph. And then 62, almost 63% weapon critical. That goes up with our sets as well, so keep that in mind. Physical and spell resistance coming in at 11k. That's for a medium armor build. You can obviously increase that with your armor buff or if your group is providing that for you. 64 points into max stamina because of our Stamina Warden. For the Mundus Stone, we've got the Shadow Mundus, increasing that critical damage by 19%. Wild Guardian, we've got Blue Food and Minor Berserk. We'll talk about all of that in a minute. As far as the potion, you can run weapon power potions for the weapon crit and weapon power buffs. Or you can also just run basic trash stamina potions. On the Warden, you have both of those buffs from your class skills, so you can run it on the cheap if you want. And then as far as the race, I am going to recommend Redguard for the bow build for a few reasons having to do with these passives. Number one, martial training is excellent for bow builds, you guys. Reduces the cost of your weapon abilities by 8%. That's going to affect one of our main spammables, as well as all of our bow skills. You do reduce the effectiveness of snares applied to you by 15%. That's not bad. You do get the 2000 max stamina, and this one is really big. Adrenaline Rush gives you almost 1,000 stamina back every 5 seconds when you're dealing direct damage, which of course you're doing all the time on this build. So this really helps with sustain. This means you don't have to run very much recovery because you're getting this every 5 seconds as well. Now, if you are a bit more experienced, you can push your damage a little bit more with something like Orc or Dark Elf for the extra weapon damage, even Khajiit for the extra critical damage. That will do very well on this build as well. But just in terms of general all-around sustain and playability, definitely check out the Redguard for a bow-focused build. I think that covers the basics. Let's talk about gear next. Starting off with our first 5-piece set. We've got a crafted set here, New Moon Acolyte. Of course, that's the 9-trait crafted set from the Dragonhold DLC. This gives us tons of overall stats. I'm talking about weapon critical, weapon damage, physical penetration, and even more weapon damage on the 5-piece. You do have the downside, though, that you do have 5% cost increase of your active abilities. But I think, being a Redguard, that's going to offset that a little bit. And your group, you should be getting some sustain from them back as well. And it's really not too bad. The Warden also has class skills that help increase our sustain as well. So on the Warden class, really not a big deal, that 5% increase. So this is going to be on our front bar bow, our main bow, running Precise as the trait for the increased crit chance there. And then in terms of the glyph or poison, it's really up to you. You can do double damage poisons. This will increase your DPS by about 1 or 2,000 there. You can also run the Absorb Stamina enchant. Absorb Stamina is going to make it much easier to sustain as well. So either one, either more damage or more sustain, up to you. So that's going to take care of 2 pieces. Then we're just running 3 New Moon Acolyte jewelry. All weapon damage here, all bloodthirsty as the trait. Second 5-piece set is going to be the Zog Vin's Warband set. This as well is a really good bow setup, you guys. You get 2 weapon critical bonuses. We get physical penetration as well. And for the 5-piece, when you deal critical damage, you gain stacks of precision. That's going to give you even more weapon critical for 10 seconds. And once you have those stacked up all the way to 10, you also get Minor Force. That increases your critical damage by another 10%. So this is one of the best sets in the game for bow damage, in my opinion, in terms of a non-trial set. Yes, this is from a DLC dungeon. It's from the Frost Vault dungeon. So you do need that DLC in order to get this. But the nice thing is you can just run this 5 pieces on the body. So we've got feet, legs, hands, waist, and chest. All in divines if you can, all with max stamina. And of course, this is a medium armor set. So that's going to be ideal for the build. I mean, you're just stacking up that weapon critical, and then you do get the minor force for free, which means you don't have to run trap. You don't have to be in melee range for trap. You don't have to run channeled acceleration or something like that. So this is just a very easy way to get that buff and increase your overall damage. Speaking of damage, let's talk about the monster set. The Storm Fist set actually is getting a buff here on the Greymoor PTS. Now you still have the stamina recovery, but we're doing a little bit more damage here on the 2-piece. You can see we're doing shock damage every 3 seconds. That shock damage now ignores spell resistance, so this actually works pretty well for stamina builds. And then you do get that big punch of physical damage as well at the end. This procs very easily on a bow build. All you need to do, of course, is deal damage, and then you have the 10% chance to proc the Storm Fist. So I think this is a very good overall set for any bow build now. You do have the stamina recovery, like I mentioned, also not bad on this setup. So I do recommend medium on both. That's just for the extra medium armor passives, the extra cost reduction, the extra weapon critical. That's going to be very good on the setup as well. Now, in terms of alternatives, if you don't have Zogvins or if you can't craft New Moon Acolyte, Hunding's Rage is always an option. That's 6 pieces craftable, so that's a little bit easier to craft. You can also pick up other damage sets, for example, Spriggans, Briarheart. Those will push out similar numbers, and those are a little bit easier to get. In terms of weights and traits, I think I mentioned it, but everything medium here. So 7 pieces of medium, all stamina enchants, all divines if you can get those traits. That's going to be the best in slot for you on this particular setup. Now that just leaves us with our back bar. So I think ideally you'd have a Maelstrom bow here. It does need to be perfected. That's the new thing with the Greymoor PTS. All the perfected version does is adds a little bit of extra weapon critical. And honestly, we're on our back bar so little on this build that it's really not necessary to go with the new perfected set. So if you have the old Maelstrom bow, that's totally fine, because that's going to increase the damage of your volley. And then of course, if you can, you want infused or just transmute it to infused with the weapon damage enchant on the back bar. That's going to be the ideal way to run this for DPS. If you don't have the Maelstrom bow yet, think about getting it, honestly, in the Greymoor chapter. Now that you can get the weapons from the normal mode, I definitely recommend investing some time in doing that for the increased damage. I think that covers the setup. Again, we've got New Moon Acolyte front bar, Maelstrom bow back bar, Zogvin on the body, and then Storm Fist monster set. Go ahead and jump over to skills next on our front bar. Starting off with Bird of Prey. This is from the Warden class skills, Animal Companions. That's the last ability that you get. Bird of Prey does give you the passive Minor Berserk. I also like that you do get some extra movement speed here for 6 seconds. This will be really nice for moving around through dungeons. I'll talk about passives in a minute, but you also get some extra damage done through your Animal Companions passives, which is nice. Next up is going to be a flex spot. I currently have Acid Spray slotted here, which is from the bow skill line. This is the second to last ability here, and this is going to be for our AoE encounter. So if you're clearing through trash packs, Acid Spray is going to be very nice in combination with our next skill, because this does AoE damage and poison damage over time. Now, on something like a single target boss fight, you can slot something else just for more passive damage. You could slot another Animal Companion skill, something like, let's say, Cutting Dive or Growing Swarm, that'll give you extra damage from the Animal Companion skills. You can also slot Fighter's Guild abilities here if you prefer, for the passive weapon damage. Ring of Preservation is very nice for extra healing on your group, and the Minor Protection, Minor Endurance. And next up, one of our main spammables on the build is going to be Subterranean Assault. This is also from the Animal Companion skill line. That's the second ability that you get. Sub Assault is going to be the Stamina Morph. And look at that low cost, big damage in an AoE. This also applies Major Fracture AoE, so that can be helpful for your group when clearing through trash. And we also get some nice passives from this. I'm talking about extra ultimate and extra healing. So this is going to be a big part of our rotation, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Then the second spammable on this build is going to be Lethal Arrow from the bow skill line. This does huge potential damage. There you see it, the first ability there. Both morphs are options. And what's nice about Lethal Arrow is I think this will do more damage, especially over a long fight, because you have that guaranteed poison status effect. Poison status, that's basically like an extra damage over time. That's going to be up for about 4 seconds, and with how the rotation on this build works, you'll have a very high uptime on that, leading to more poison damage. And depending on your group, maybe for dungeons, you can also run the other morph, which gives you Minor Fracture. That's also a nice debuff depending on your group composition, but definitely lethal arrow for the extra damage. Last regular ability on the front bar, that's going to be Bullnetch. It's also from Animal Companions, second to last ability here. Bullnetch is the stamina morph. And this is why, you guys, we can run just weapon damage glyphs, pure damage, and still have good sustain. It's because this is giving us a ton of stamina back every second, and it also gives us major brutality, meaning you can run those cheap potions if you want. So just make sure this is up 100% of the time. Now for the ultimate, we're going to run the Wild Guardian, the bear pet. Over the course of a long fight, this does very good sustained damage, and then you can activate the Guardian Savagery, and this does bonus execute damage as well. That scales once the enemy is below 25% health, so keep that in mind. But it's a very strong ultimate. This can basically replace one cast of Lethal Arrow in our rotation, and we are going to have to double bar that, so keep that in mind. So it's going to be on the front and the back bar. Speaking of back bar, it is a double bow build, so we've got bow on the back bar as well, that infused Maelstrom bow. First ability here is going to be Echoing Vigor, and again, this is kind of a flex spot for group utility. It's nice to have somebody run Echoing Vigor, 10-second heal over time. It doesn't cost that much anymore, so this offers a lot of nice group healing. That, of course, is from the Alliance War skill line. That's under Assault. Second ability there, Echoing Vigor is the group morph, so that's going to be preferred. Now, if you don't like that, of course, you can run some of the Warden heals. Wardens have very nice healing, and for that, I would recommend under Green Balance, Green Lotus here. Green Lotus can give you very good healing based on your light attacks, and this also gives you passive major savagery. So remember, I talked about with our Warden buffs, we can run just basic potions. If you run Green Lotus here, you can definitely do that. Now, another option more for group healing is going to be Soothing Spores. This is also nice because it heals all allies in front of you, so it has kind of a conal effect. So more AoE healing if you use that ability. Again, it is up to you what you choose there. Next ability is part of our back bar rotation. We're going to run Poison Injection. Of course, that is from the bow skill line as well. That's the last ability that you get. Poison Injection is the morph that you want, because that's going to give you that nice bonus execute damage that starts scaling below 50% health. Very cheap to cast as well. And then for our back bar AoE, we've got Arrow Barrage. This does very nice physical damage over time, as well as being amped by the Maelstrom bow. And of course, this is going to proc that back bar enchant, the infused weapon damage enchant. So it's going to be important to keep this up 100% of the time, so you keep that enchant active. That's also from the bow skill line. Arrow Barrage is the morph that does more damage. That does have a shorter duration though, so that's going to affect your rotation. But I'll show you how to throw that in just a minute. Next up, I've got Cutting Dive. This is just for the passive damage from Animal Companions. This is another flex spot. Like I said, on the front bar, you can run a Fighter's Guild ability for extra weapon damage. Obviously, here you can also run your armor ability. If nobody is running armor for the group, then check out Ice Fortress. This gives you the major resolve as well as minor protection for yourself. That's really nice for defense. Then we've got Bullnetch again for the passives there on the back bar. We've got Bullnetch again for the passives as well as Wild Guardian. Remember, we need this ultimate slotted on both bars. So very simple setup. Most of these abilities are passives. The only actives you have here are Arrow Barrage and Poison Injection. Now, as far as passives, Warden passives are honestly very good. You'll want to pick up all of these. I mean, Bond with Nature, we talked about this on the front bar. You get healed for free every time you use your Sub-Assault. You also get Ultimate from casting Sub-Assault, although that can only happen every 8 seconds, but it does generate a good bit of Ultimate over time. Flourish, this is awesome as well. This gives you 12% extra stamina and Magicka recovery on both bars. In Advanced Species, we talked about the damage done here, 2% for each Animal Companion ability slotted. So make sure you pick up all of these passives. Green Balance as well, although some of these only proc off your Green Balance abilities. So if you're running Green Lotus or Soothing Spores, keep that in mind. For example, Accelerated Growth. This can give you major mending off those Green Balance abilities, so you do want this if you have those slotted. As well as Nature's Gift, this gives you bonus Magicka or Stamina based on whichever is lower. Emerald Moss, this will give you a little bit of extra healing on the back bar. But then Maturation, this passive will work whether or not you have Green Balance ability, so you'd want this for sure. This is that minor toughness buff, you guys. So 10% extra max health for 20 seconds. This can apply to you and your group, so very, very nice, especially when you're running Echoing Vigor on the back bar. That's a great way to maintain that extra health bonus. Winter's Embrace, we aren't using too many of these, but I do recommend picking them up. And then, of course, we will want all of our bow passives. These are extremely important Now, long shots, this does give you bonus damage based on your range. Now, the problem with that is the Warden Sub-Assault. Sub-Assault is not the same range as Lethal Arrow, for example. So you won't be getting the entire bonus here, but you will be getting a substantial amount of increased damage. Make sure you pick that up, as well as accuracy for the bonus weapon crit. Ranger reduces the cost of your bow abilities, which is very good. And then Hawkeye, this is a stacking passive based on your light and heavy attacks. Now, we do want a light attack weave, essentially light attacking between every ability, so you should have 5 stacks of this all the time, meaning your bow abilities are going to hit for 25% more damage. Really, really good. And then hasty retreat for the extra movement speed on roll dodge is not bad. Of course, you do want all your medium armor passives on this setup. I did decide just to go with 7 medium, and really that's for dexterity because we do get 2 extra bonuses of weapon critical, basically, by having 7 medium versus 5-1-1. So I think that's important on the build like this, as well as the stamina recovery and stamina reduce cost. You'll be maxing those out with 7 pieces of medium armor. Improved sneak, that's always optional, but make sure you pick up agility and athletics as well. Some good bonuses there. Now, Fighter's Guild, I do recommend these if you're running, like Ring of Preservation on your front or even your back bar, because you can reduce the cost of that with the Intimidating Presence passive. You can also get extra weapon damage from this, and then of course Banish the Wicked gives you extra ultimate when killing undead or Daedra, so that's good regardless. Mage's Guild, Psijic Order, we don't need these. Undaunted, make sure you pick these up though. You'll get extra sustain from activating synergies, extra stats from your Undaunted Metal. Redguard skills, of course you want all your racial skills regardless of your choice there, and then Alchemy, Medicinal Use to make those potions last as long as possible. Briefly, let's talk about champion points. In the green tree, 23 into Warlord, 23 into Sprinter, 37 Tenacity, 26 Healthy, 37 Arcanist, 64 into Mooncalf, 30 into Shadow Ward, 30 into Tumbling. Then in the blue tree, 19 into Physical Weapon Expert, 72 Master at Arms, 28 Thaumaturge, 48 Precise Strikes, 47 Piercy, 56 into Mighty. In the red tree, 72 Ironclad, 64 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, 51 Thick-Skinned, and 19 into Quick Recovery. Outfit on this build, if you're curious, I think this is just a costume. This is called Cavalier of the Sworn Oath. That's way back from the Rothgar DLC, so I just have that, plus hiding the helmet. And that covers the build. Let's look at how the rotation works. So, the rotation centers around 2 main spammable abilities, Subterranean Assault and Lethal Arrow. If you know Sub-Assault, this has about a 3-second timer. Lethal Arrow has about a 1-second timer, so you can combine those together, essentially Sub-Assault and then 2 Lethal Arrows. That's going to be the main DPS for this build. Let me get rid of my bear buddy just momentarily. Sorry, bud. All right, so to work on the rotation, that's what you'll want to work on first. Sub-Assault, Lethal Arrow, Lethal Arrow. Sub-Assault, Lethal Arrow, Lethal Arrow. That's the main bread and butter of that rotation. Now, for the back bar, where you'll usually start is just Arrow Barrage into a Poison Injection and then bar swap, so something like this. Bar swap, and then here, Sub-Assault, Lethal Arrow, Lethal Arrow. Very, very simple. So again, remember that your back bar dots, both of these, Arrow Barrage and Poison Injection, those both have 10-second timers. So we'll want to get in about 2 rotations on the front bar for every rotation on the back bar. So starting on your back bar, got those. Sub-Assault, 2 Lethal Arrows. Sub-Assault, 2 Lethal Arrows. And then you'll want to bar swap back and recast. Something like this. Now before you bar swap back, throw in 1 more Sub-Assault and then bar swap if you can, just to maintain that 3-second timer on Sub-Assault. Now, where do you throw in your ultimate and your buffs? Basically, just replace 1 Sub-Assault. Let's say that I had my bear on the front bar. I would replace 1 Lethal Arrow, my very last Lethal Arrow, here. that would be my ultimate cast. Or if you need to rebuff Bullnetch or you need to pop a synergy, that's when I would do that. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this easy DPS bow warden build. Hope you all enjoyed the video. I know it was a little bit different than what you usually expect on this channel, but hopefully it was helpful. I haven't seen a lot of builds similar to this. Mostly you see like endgame builds with all trials gear, and I really wanted something to help out newer players who maybe don't have that yet and show them how to get there. So if you liked it, make sure you hit that like button. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, let me know that too. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more build videos and ESO content in the future with notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. And if you'd like to support the channel further, check out the links below. There's links to my Twitter account, the new website, there's that juicy join button for YouTube members. Big shout out, by the way, to all the current and new channel members. You all are amazing and your support means a lot to me. I definitely appreciate it. So with all that said, we'll go ahead and end with a quick parse on the build. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there and I will see you around in the next video.